When you're ready to add the item onto your letter, you're going to need the following materials to get started. You want a piece of paper to lay your project on if it's very wet, meaning the clay sticks to things. You'll want your project, your add-on item. You may want your plan to kind of figure out where everything goes if you need that. You'll want a cup of water. This also has a sponge inside. You need a cup of slip. Slip is watered down clay. It kind of looks like a milkshake, a bad milkshake. Don't drink this. So it looks like that. If yours is separated anyway, just stir it with a clay tool. You also need some clay tools and a fork. So what you're going to do first is you're going to lay your add-on item on your letter to determine placement. So I'm going to lay my paintbrush right here. Then using a clay tool or a sharpened stick, something like this, I'm going to outline where I would like to place my add-on item. So outline it. Then I'm going to lift off my add-on item and I'm turning it over. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to mark on my item just at the bottom where I don't need to scratch. So the next step will be to determine what you where you need to actually scratch your project. So clay, when you want to put it together, if you just stick it together in the kiln, it tends to dry out and separate. It doesn't like to stay together. So what you'll need to do for this is you'll have to scratch it up and add the glue, which is slip. And when you do that, it ends up being more like Velcro and you smush it together, and then it has a hard time coming apart. So my next step will be to add scratches to the area that I've outlined in the back of my paintbrush. You're not going to scratch lightly like that. You want to scratch rather deep and kind of take your aggression out on the clay. Think, somebody flushed my Chromebook and now I have to pay for it. That's $250 I don't want to spend. So I'm scratching both areas. Now my add-on item is very small in some places and delicate, as is yours probably. So I'm holding onto the sides to support it so I don't destroy it and rip it to pieces, especially the top of the paintbrush. It's almost going to fall off, so I'm making sure I have lots of supports. The next step, once you have both areas scratched up, get some slip. You can do this with a paintbrush or a clay tool. It's really your choice. So I'm putting a lot of slip on, covering it well. Don't be stingy. This is the glue that's going to hold the clay together. Remember, slip is watered down clay. It's just a different form of it. And the clay we're using now to create your letter and your add-on item is called plastic clay. And those two, plastic clay is the clay where you have the most flexibility and you do most of your work. But the slip ends up acting like a glue. There. So what I'm going to do now is take my fork and re-scratch. Kind of really getting the slip to attach to the piece that it's on. Alright, so once I've gotten that, I'll set that aside. And I'm going to take my paintbrush and lay it right on top of the scratches that I've already done. I'm going to push down on it to firmly, really, I've kind of done something like this. I'm pushing down to kind of interlock those scratches. Got a lot of extra slip coming out, that's okay. And you might deform your item just a little bit, but you can go back over it and reform. Then I'm going to use a clay tool. And I'm going to go probably remove a little bit of my slip. There's a little bit extra on it if I need to. And actually, I could probably put it in there. Just a little bit. I don't want to take it all off, because then I'm going to take my tool, my clay modeling tool, and I'm going to go in here and really start attaching these. So I'm actually physically pulling part of the clay from my item down and attaching it to my letter A. You can go back over and kind of smooth everything out. Okay, so I'm going to really start attaching that. Smooth that out. Attach this side well. A little too much slip on that. So now my project should look like one piece of clay instead of two. That's the best way to get things to attach well in the count. Now, if you wanted the line to show where things are, get the sharpened stick back out again and kind of draw it if you want to. Now, I'm not done attaching because I need to go underneath and really make sure that every aspect of this is attached. Oh, I'm seeing a crack here. So what I'm going to do is take and smooth that out as well. If it's a big crack, I can put some slip and scratch inside it if I'm able to. If this is a small crack, you can simply smooth it out. I'm going to get over here and try and make sure I attach that well so my paintbrush doesn't fall off, because that would be bad. Attach over here. And sometimes it works better to do things with just fingers. It's up to you and how you work. So now I have attached my paintbrush to my letter A. I can smooth things out, and this is where that sponge comes in handy. Wring it out. This is an elephant ear sponge, and the very fine texture of that will start smoothing away any mistakes you might have, or cracks, or anything where you accidentally scratched into it. Right here I've got a little crack, so I'm going to go back over that. Smooth that out, take my sponge, and then smooth out the entire area. And this is a nice time to start really going over all of your edges. Make sure there would be no sharp edges on it. Check for cracks, like this guy here. And don't just do this to the front. With your hands supporting it, so you don't smush your object there, you can do this to the back as well. Really have a nice burr-free project. What I mean by burr is any clay that would be kind of hanging up or creating an edge that would be sharp, or kind of something could catch on. So I've got that all smoothed out. Looks like I am ready for the next step, which would be to add some textures.